Two murder investigations from the case files of Lt.Joe Kenda. First, a friendly get-together spirals out of control.
Put those kids in one place and give them a little alcohol and stand by. There's going to be some problems.
Lt. Kenda must chase down a volatile teenager with something to prove.
This guy just wanted to hunt a human.
All of these people have that same edge about them, that they're very willing to engage in violent behavior.
Then, the mysterious death of a gun enthusiast.
It was a disaster waiting to happen.
And a pair of eyewitness statements that just don't add up.
Are you serious?
Do I not look serious?
Guns are like the ocean, unforgiving of mistakes. If you're a parent, pay attention to your child. Don't allow your family to be destroyed when you can prevent it. Because if you don't, you're going to wind up talking to somebody just like me.
There's one thing that never changes: murder. A life has been taken. Their stories are now my stories. I never know where a case is going to lead, but I'll never stop until it's solved. Somebody has to look out for the victim.
If you kill, I will find you.
It's a quiet Friday night on East Dale Street, and 32-year-old Tim Jordan is settling in for the evening.
I was just coming home from the gym, and I was getting ready to eat something, maybe sit down and watch a little bit of TV. I was probably home for maybe 15, 20 minutes when all of a sudden I heard like really loud gunshots right outside my window.
What the hell?
He looked out the window,
Oh my God.
and what he saw was not good.
Oh my God.
There's this young man lying on his back with his friend kneeling beside him, and he was just completely covered in blood.
All right.
I'm gonna go call the cops.
It was quite shocking and heartbreaking all at the same time. I'll never forget that.
Not 5 miles down the road, Lt.Joe Kenda is getting ready to head home.
Man, great job on getting that scumbag to confess.
He was ready to crack the moment we went in there.
Hey, Bob. Yes, sir. You mind booking this son of a bitch for us?
Not at all.
Thanks.
That particular day, we had just obtained a full confession from someone in a murder case, and we were completing the final documents to put this person in custody when the phone rang.
Miss Kenda. Okay, we'll be right there.
Another one?
Yep.
We learned from dispatch that someone had been shot.
I guess sleep is overrated anyway.
15 minutes later, Kenda and Detective Walker pull up to a chaotic scene.
Everyone has a mission when you arrive at these things. Walker's assignment was to find out what facts were known, and my job at that moment is to try to control this chaos.
Lieutenant, what exactly happened here?
Your guess is as good as mine.
Is there anything that you can tell us?
I'm gonna go ahead and cordon this area off, get these people the hell out of the way.
All right, back up. Hey, backing up.
If order is not established, that wastes a great deal of time, and time is of the essence.
So what do we know so far?
Adolescent male Vic, shot multiple times. Medical rushed him to the hospital. He was dead on arrival.
The victim was Dwayne Castle. He was a 16-year-old white and Asian male.
There was a party here, but he was shot out here.
Let's take a look. Hey, Stan.
Hey, Lieutenant.
So that's where the victim was found?
Yes.
You could easily see the blood trail, so he traveled some distance by foot after having been shot.
Looks like he was shot in the vehicle.
Stan, how many times was the victim shot?
Twice, once in the wrist and once in the back.
Mr. Castle got out of that truck after he was shot and eventually collapsed.
What's the caliber?
It's a .380.
The casings that were found are on the right side of the vehicle, and the gunshot entries were in the passenger door glass. 6 holes in the truck, 2 holes in Mr. Castle.
This was no drive-by.
I don't think so. I don't want to make any assumptions until we learn more about this house party.
There are a number of possibilities to consider at this point, but first and foremost, I want to know if our victim's death is related to something that went on at that party.
And do you know who lives here?
Yeah, a teenager, Daniel Belzer. His mom's out of town.
You have someone bring him in? I want to talk to him.
No problem. Thanks.
In the meantime, Kenda and Walker inspect the house for clues.
Yikes.
The place is trashed. There's red plastic cups everywhere, empty beer containers, things knocked over.
Did you find any weapons?
Nothing yet.
There's no bloodstains or bullets or any evidence of a struggle or a fight. Nothing associated with what happened in the street.
Lieutenant, I have a Daniel Belzer.
Thank you. Hi there, Daniel.
It's Dante.
What's that?
Everybody calls me Dante.
Okay, Dante. So how do you know Dwayne Castle?
He's a good friend of mine. We go to the same school together.
I met Dwayne at Whitefield Alternative High School. Everybody got along with Dwayne. He was a very positive person. His positive energy, positive attitude kind of automatically draw people to him.
Dwayne's dead, isn't he?
I'm afraid so.
I knew he was dead basically when I came out to the parking lot. I remember holding him and putting his head on my lap.
I know this isn't easy. Do you have any idea how or why this happened?
I just had a few of my boys over, and then more people started showing up.
And it got completely out of control.
But she's out of the country, so this is all fun.
Many more people showed up than he anticipated.
And then this dude Brian started getting into it with Dwayne.
I started hearing Brian's voice octave go up a few notches and a bunch of F you this, F you that. And at that particular point, I got myself involved.
And he just told them they should leave. They should all leave before things got out of control.
So Dwayne left?
Yeah, and Brian followed him right out. Next thing I know, I'm hearing gunshots outside.
Did you see who fired those shots?
No.
I was in the hallway area. I wasn't able to see who pulled the trigger.
Did you see where Brian went after you heard the shots?
No idea. By the time I went outside, he was already gone.
So our victim is followed out of the party by Brian, the same person he was just having an intense argument with, and moments later winds up dead. Coincidence? I think not. At this point in this investigation, we only know one person who is angry with our victim. 2 and 2 usually adds up to be 4.
So you think Brian could have done something like this?
I don't know him that well, but he thinks he's some sort of gangster. Always tries to act all tough, but he ain't.
Does this Brian have a last name?
Yeah, it's Howlett.
Any idea where he lives?
No, but I do have his pager number, if that'll help.
That'd be great.
So we called the number and supplied a number, and he returned the call.
Hello?
Yo, who this?
Hey, Brian, this is Lieutenant Kenda from the Colorado Springs Police Department. You still there, Brian?
Yeah. I'm here.
Mr. Howlett was very surprised when it turns out to be the police that are paging him.
What's this about?
Brian, I need you to go downtown. We need to have a little chat about Dwayne Castle. Think you can do that?
Mr. Howlett, if you don't do that, you'll leave us to have to draw our own conclusions about your level of involvement. And that could be bad for you.
Yeah, okay.
All right, I'll see you soon. And Dante, we need you to go downtown as well to make a formal statement.
Sure.
Before heading back to the station, Kenda and Walker make a necessary stop.
We had to contact Susan Castle to notify her that her son had been killed.
Mrs. Castle, I know this is difficult for you, but we're going to help you get through this.
She was devastated.
This is just going to destroy his father.
Dwayne's father was out of town. He was an over-the-road truck driver.
Dwayne just idolized his dad. When he's in town, they spend all their time together.
Mrs. Castle, was Dwayne involved in anything that might have led to this type of violence?
Well, he was involved with the wrong kind of friends.
She also told us that Dwayne hung out with some gang members called the Four Corner Hustlers.
These are the wannabe kids who want to portray themselves as somewhat mysterious and dangerous.
Well, he's been done with all that nonsense, and he's been doing so much better in school. His dad and I are just very proud of him.
His parents were so pleased that he seemed to have turned the corner, that they'd bought him this red pickup truck as a present. And that's what he drove to the party.
Mrs. Castle, we're very sorry for your loss. I'll make sure a social worker stops by.
You hang in there.
Kenda and Walker shift gears and set their sights on their #1 suspect, Brian Howlett.
Brian, thanks for coming in.
What do you want from me?
We need to talk about Dwayne Castle.
What about him?
Why don't you cut the tough guy act?
Brian Howlett portrays himself as this mysterious, dangerous gang member when in fact he's a 19-year-old nitwit.
We need to know what happened between you and Dwayne last night.
All right, look. We were at the party, and everything was all good until I ran into Dwayne.
What's your problem with Dwayne?
I heard he'd been trying to get with my girl Maria. I wasn't gonna let that fly.
Dude, what the hell?
Yo, bitch!
Brian, alcohol-fueled, makes a beeline toward him.
Heard you've been talking to Maria.
What?
I don't know who told you that, but it ain't true. Lie to me. I had to beat your ass right here, right now.
Look, I don't know what you're talking about. Yo, quit lying, bitch.
Hey, guys. No one's fighting in my mom's place. Come on, let's go. Let's go. Come on.
Brian said that they got into an argument. Brian's friends jumped into that argument.
So I let it go. Then Dante comes up to me and asks me if you want to get Dwayne outside so I could fight him.
Wait, Dante as in Daniel Belzer said that?
No, that's black Dante. I'm talking about white Dante.
Come again?
He let us know that there was also another Dante who was white Dante.
Brian says they tell them apart by the color of their skin. Simple enough, I suppose.
Okay, so white Dante said he'd lure Dwayne out of the house.
Yeah, I just want to go home. Hey.
Look, man, Maria's just a friend. Whatever you think I said, just forget about it. Hey, let's just squash it and move on.
You better not hear my name come out of your mouth.
Brian told us that he had brushed it off at that point and was just going to let him go to get in his truck.
I turn around, I start to walk away. Then all of a sudden, bang, bang, I turn around and Joe's just unloading the clip on the guy. I know what to do. I ran.
So you're saying your buddy Joe's the one that shot Dwayne?
Yeah.
Right.
I think Brian's trying to minimize the situation.
Does Joe have a last name?
Medina.
All right. Stay put. I'll send someone in.
So he makes a direct accusation that Joe Medina is the shooter. Is he truthful? Maybe, but we need something more than Brian's accusation to close this case.
Kenda and Walker decide to turn their attention towards 17-year-old Dante Rowan, AKA White Dante.
We want to talk to White Dante. Need to corroborate what Brian's saying.
Dante, we were told that you helped lure Dwayne outside when he got shot.
We explained to him that Brian Howlett says White Dante is a participant in drawing Castle to his death.
No, absolutely not. How could you even say that?
White Dante is very upset about that.
Dwayne is one of my best friends.
I was surprised because I thought I was making it clear I was removing him from the situation, not trying to get him outside for them to fight him.
Okay, then why don't you tell us exactly what happened?
All right. See, we were going to a party at Black Dante's, right? Dwayne was with me.
It felt like your typical Friday night. Way we're kicking off the weekend, you know. Brian, Joe, and Nathaniel had showed up over there. And when they did, Brian noticed Dwayne.
Things started getting escalated, and Black Dante didn't want anything going down in his mom's place, you know? So I convinced Dwayne to leave. Dwayne, come on, man, let's go. It's not with me. Let's go. Yeah, you're right. We got in Dwayne's car, but before I could get in, he was reaching over the passenger seat, right? And trying to unlock the door for me to get in. All of a sudden, we heard a shot.
My hat went flying off my head, and then I looked to my left, and then I just seen Joe just unloading the whole clip. He fell out the truck, screaming. You shot me. I can't believe you shot me. And I didn't know what to do.
Come on, man, we gotta go.
I just jumped in the car, and we took off.
Whose car were you in?
Sean Trujillo's. He's a friend of mine. I gotta go.
And I look over to have Joe sitting in the back seat. I'm in shock. I don't know what to say.
Where'd you go from there?
We met up with Nathan and his half-brother, Steven.
What the hell just happened?
Yo, man, just relax, chill, all right?
They talked for a while and they left.
What did Joe do with the gun?
He took it with him.
Well, I appreciate the information. We'll be in touch.
White Dante's account adds a new layer to this already convoluted case.
So now we have two people naming Joe Medina as the killer, and now we have another complication. They drive to a location where they meet Nathaniel and his half-brother Steven, and they have some sort of discussion with Joe Medina. So what are they talking about? And what does that have to do with this case? We need to find that out.
Kenda sends officers to pick up 18-year-old Joe Medina while he and Walker search for Nathaniel Simmons and his half-brother Stephen Mowry.
Can I help you?
Man, we're looking for your two sons, Nathaniel and Stephen. Are they at home?
Yes. What's this about?
Yeah, I'm Steven.
Stephen appears as if he expected us. He's almost calm. That's indicative of somebody that has something to say.
I was wondering how long it would take you guys to get here. Looking for the gun, right?
When he said that, I couldn't believe my ears. He knows exactly why we're here. And more importantly, he knows exactly where that gun is. So we're at the doorstep of Nathaniel Simmons and his half-brother, Stephen. As far as we know, they met up with Joe Medina after he killed Dwayne Castle. And now, without prompting, Stephen volunteers some information about the murder weapon.
So, Stephen, you know where the gun is?
It's in the Johnson's reservoir.
And how do you know that?
Because I threw it in there.
He said, Medina told me he killed a guy and produced a gun. It's a 380, and he wanted me to get rid of it.
You want to find it? Go look in there.
We will. But you're going to help us. I'll put some shoes on. We're going to take a little trip down to that reservoir.
Within the hour, they meet a dive team at the Johnson Reservoir, a 280-acre lake just south of the city.
If you saw Johnson Reservoir, you'd say, no, impossible. It's big. And the concept of somebody throwing a gun in it would just make your heart sink.
To know that an object was thrown into 280 acres of water isn't very helpful. We have to know where it was thrown.
Okay, Stephen. We need to know exactly where you were standing when you threw that gun.
Right over here. What you want me to do with these?
Which one feels more like the weight of the gun?
This one right here.
I said, I want you to take that rock and throw it in the area where you threw the gun. And so he swings back, and he throws it about 110 feet into the water.
Okay, boys, there's our mark. Be careful out there.
What now?
We wait.
The anticipation is always enough to make you crazy. We're standing here hoping they will find this gun because it's an all or nothing kind of moment. A diver's hand rises above the surface, and in his hand is a .380 automatic.
Bingo.
It was a great moment. So we now have the murder weapon in our possession.
Just then, Kenda receives more good news.
Dispatch to Kenda.
Go for Kenda.
We got word from the station. We've got Joe Medina in custody.
Perfect. We'll be heading back ASAP. Kenda out. Mr. Medina, thanks for cooperating with us.
It's clear to Kenda that Joe Medina thinks he's some sort of hardened gangster.
If all of these kids ever met a true gangster, they would wet their pants.
Joe, why don't you start by telling me where you got the gun?
I ain't saying nothing.
Well, Joe, this is your one chance to set the record straight. Tell your side of the story.
Give me a lawyer.
Okay. If that's the way you want to play it, be my guest.
He invoked his right to remain silent. He's not going to tell us anything.
But Medina's silence won't save his skin. In the room next door, Nathaniel Simmons is with Detective Walker, singing like a canary.
Nathaniel tells us that this all begins at the party in an argument over a girl. Passions rise, heated words are exchanged.
Joe and I were right there. We had Brian's back. So when we realized he was outside with Dwayne, we went out there too.
Yo, what happened? You kick his ass?
Nah, it's done. Nah, man, we squashed it.
What?
We squashed it.
Nah, that. We need to teach him a lesson. Yo, Dwayne, get your punk ass back here.
Yo, come on, you gotta let me in, dude. Dwayne, come on. Come on. Get out of the car, you little bitch.
Nathaniel was trying to get Dwayne out of the truck so that they could have a physical fight.
Yo, I got this.
Nathaniel says that he is shocked and surprised that Medina produces a gun.
Come on, come on.
Nathaniel hits the deck because he could have easily been shot by his own companion.
What are you doing?
They drive off. They meet his half-brother Stephen, and Medina gives him the gun and tells Stephen he's killed somebody. So Nathaniel provides us with an explanation of how this escalates from verbiage into gunfire.
So what exactly was Joe thinking?
Man, I don't know. I guess he was just trying to prove how bad he was.
I think that Joe Medina was trying to make a name for himself when he placed himself into that argument. And I think his intent was to end that argument.
Joe was the smallest of the bunch that was trying to be the hardest. He was blinded by ignorance. And I think he was trying so hard trying to be a gangbanger that when he saw opportunity to step up to be a G, that he didn't take time to think about it.
Joe Medina is charged with the murder of Dwayne Castle. A year later, he's convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life without parole.
Sean Trujillo, the driver of the getaway car, is found guilty of accessory to the crime of first-degree murder and is sentenced to 3 years in prison for driving the car. Brian, Nathaniel, and Stephen were not charged due to their cooperation with the police.
But the convictions provide little consolation to the family and friends of Dwayne Castle.
It's amazing how sad this whole situation is. I really miss Dwayne. He always had a smile. I don't believe anybody should ever have to fear losing their life over some words.
Dwayne should never have lost his life over that. I hope he's keeping heaven positive, you know?
Young people do not understand the consequences of violent behavior. They don't understand truly the consequences of firing a gun at someone. Juvenile gang activity is a horrible way to waste your life. Either to waste the life entirely with your death or spend most of it in prison.
Coming up, the mysterious death of a wannabe gunslinger has Kenda questioning the story he's being told.
Hey, wait!
There's something very wrong when things get mislabeled in something as serious as a death.
It's Saturday night, and Joe and Kathy Kenda are taking some time for themselves.
On this particular evening, we were just relaxing, my wife and I.
It is so beautiful out tonight.
It sure is.
Cheers.
Cheers.
I thought you were covered tonight.
Well, they must need my help with this. Otherwise, they wouldn't call.
It was frustrating for my wife that there were many occasions when we could not proceed with our lives because of my employment.
I gotta go.
It's okay.
I love you.
I love you too.
Not 30 minutes later, Kenda arrives at a small apartment building on the east side of Colorado Springs.
How you doing, Sarge?
More? So what do I owe my Saturday night?
I know you said the only call if we had something strange, and we have an actually pretty sketchy situation on our hands right now.
Once I got on scene, I very quickly realized that this was something that was very complicated.
Detective Moore explained to me there were a total of 3 people in this apartment. One is dead, and he has a massive gunshot wound to the head.
Is the body still inside?
No. Medical tried to revive him, and he died before he got to the hospital.
Do you have an ID?
Yeah, it's 23-year-old Dwight Lansing. He's from Montana.
Dwight was a good guy. He'd made kind of that young man's journey where you go far away from home, and he was toughing it out.
What about the other 2 guys?
Friends of the victims. They told first responders that he was fooling around with a gun and accidentally shot himself.
What kind of gun are we talking about?
It's a real unusual one. Hey, Mike, you got that weapon? Thank you.
The weapon is a replica of a Colt Peacemaker.
You don't see that very often.
No.
A single-action, large-caliber handgun made to look like a cowboy gun. This particular gun is .357 Magnum.
Looks like you got everything under control. Why am I here?
Let me show you.
And speaking with the witnesses, what we heard initially as far as statements didn't really add up.
This is where they found our victim laying down with the gun dangling in his left hand.
There's an enormous amount of blood. This was a devastating wound to the victim's head.
As you can see, the blood spatter on the door and part of the wall.
Was there an exit wound?
Negative.
So what we're looking at here is blowback. Anytime a gunshot wound is inflicted, there is blowback of blood from the entrance wound to the gunshot.
Okay. So he was facing into the bedroom when he took the shot. Seems simple enough. What's wrong with the witness statements?
Well, they are both claiming Dwight shot himself while exiting the bedroom.
No, that's impossible. If that were the case, the spatter be on that wall.
The blood spatter evidence in this apartment is directly the opposite of the story being told by the two witnesses.
So let's see what the witnesses have to say.
Okay.
The concern in this particular case is people are lying. They're lying for a reason. We don't know what that reason is.
Kenda and Moore decide to start with the man who first called 911, 18-year-old Dave Garrett.
Mr. Garrett, I'm Sergeant Kenda. Do you mind answering a few questions for us?
Yeah, sure.
What exactly happened this evening?
Well, me and Scott came over this afternoon to check out Dwight's new gun.
Dave says that Dwight got this gun in the mail from his dad, including a shoulder holster.
This is really cool. Reach for the sky. No. Yeah, how about you, man? And so we took the gun out to shoot some beer cans. Oh. Nice, man.
Where did you guys get the ammo from?
His dad sent us a bunch. Dwight saved 6 rounds for later, but otherwise we shot it all.
So they shoot up all this ammunition, except Dwight makes a point of saving 6 rounds so that he has a loaded gun at home. Like most firearms people, they don't have unloaded guns. They load guns. That's what a gun is for, have bullets in it.
We got home kind of late. I went into the living room to call my girlfriend. That's when it happened. No, not very accurate. But it's cool. It looks like an old Peacemaker, like from a John Wayne movie. Yeah, so you think you can pick me up in like a half hour? Dwight!
And he heard Scott scream.
Call 911! So I ran over to the bedroom, and there I saw Dwight on the ground with the gun in his hand.
His left hand?
Yeah, I believe so.
Do you know if Dwight's left-handed?
Well, honestly, I have no clue.
So you didn't see Dwight shoot himself?
No, sir.
All right, stay put.
To find out what actually happened, Kenda and Moore talk with the lone eyewitness, 18-year-old Scott Eaker.
Scott, I'm gonna need you to walk me through what happened when you guys got home shooting guns.
We've been messing around with Dwight's gun all day.
They were twirling the gun in their finger like they do in the movies, the Western cowboys, spinning a gun in the holster, out of the holster.
And so when Dave went to go call his girlfriend, Dwight and I went into his bedroom to put away the gun in the holster. Man, I just can't get that.
Watch this. Dwight! Call 911!
We both thought the gun wasn't loaded.
So where was Dwight standing when this happened?
We were in the hallway, right outside the bedroom door.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah, definitely.
The blood evidence says otherwise.
There is no way that could have taken place unless the victim turned his head like an owl would have turned their head, for that blood spatter to make a pattern that we observed.
Kenda doesn't believe Scott's story, or Dave's for that matter. So he's left with only one option.
Mike?
Yes, sir.
Chris?
Sir.
Take these boys down to the station, put them in separate cages.
Wait, what? You got it.
Turn around.
Are you serious?
Back. Do I not look serious?
We're not staying here in this apartment where you have some degree of comfort. We're taking you to our house.
After Dave and Scott are whisked away, a new face shows up on scene.
Hey, Sarge, I got someone I think you need to talk to. Her name's Tracy Lee.
Hi, Tracy. Were you a friend of Dwight's?
I'm his girlfriend.
And how long had you and Dwight been dating?
Not long, but I've known him for quite some time. I used to date his friend Scott.
I felt that was certainly a reason for motive. Are we dealing with the love triangle?
Tracy, let me ask you a question. Was Dwight left-handed or right-handed?
He was right-handed, same as me.
So we think back to the moment that Dave says he saw the gun in his left hand. Well, why would a right-handed guy have a gun in his left hand unless somebody put it there? This, as they say, is becoming curiouser and curiouser. So now we're in our own offices, and we have in our hands a couple of people who are pathetic liars. We have a dead kid at Memorial Hospital ER that so far has not been explained.
Kenda and Moore decide to start with Dave Garrett, who seems like he's ready to crack.
We confront Dave and say, Dave, what you tell us isn't true. And he says, well, look, I'm sorry. I was scared.
There's something I didn't tell you. Something that I don't even want to think about.
And what's that?
What I saw after I heard the shot.
David came in and observed Scott actually taking the weapon and putting that weapon in the victim's left hand.
So Scott is obviously our guy.
So you think Scott killed Dwight?
I don't know, maybe, but there's no way he would ever do that intentionally. They're best friends.
And you're telling us the God's honest truth this time?
Yes, sir, I swear.
Dave may not have initially told police about Scott moving the gun and so on for two reasons. One is Dave is quite probably in shock. And the second is they're buddies, and he's probably got some allegiance to Scott.
All right, well, wait here. We'll have an officer escort you out shortly. I think we know what's next.
Yeah.
After learning that the scene was staged, it's time for Kenda and Moore to bring the hammer down on Scott Eaker.
So we bring Scott into a room. We're going to advise him of his rights because he is the focus of our investigation.
Forget everything I told you.
He immediately says, I want to tell you the truth now. That's a good start.
So stupid.
Take your time.
We've been playing around with it all day. Just messing around. And when I pointed it at Dwight and pulled the trigger, the gun went off.
He did say he was holding the weapon. Scott was holding the weapon and tragically pulled the trigger.
I couldn't believe the gun was loaded. I thought for sure it was empty when we finished shooting.
Okay, well, if that's the case, why'd you put the gun in Dwight's hand?
I panicked. I didn't think anyone would believe me.
He pretty quickly thought, I better make this look like it was an accident by Dwight. But he also didn't think it through very well.
Scott is forgetting that Dwight isn't left-handed, and the police aren't as stupid as Scott is.
But even after hearing Scott's story, Kenda and Moore are confused as to how Scott didn't know the gun was loaded.
So we go back to Dave to ask him a critical question.
Dave, before you leave, can you answer something for us?
Okay.
You said that Dwight saved 6 rounds for later before he went shooting.
Yeah.
Did you see him reload the gun when he got back from the range?
Yeah. Before I called my girlfriend, I saw him pull the shells from his pocket and pop them back in.
So did Scott see this too?
No, he was in the bathroom.
Equipped with this new information, Kenda now believes he knows what happened.
After the three amigos returned from the shooting, Scott went to the bathroom and Dwight reloaded his precious Peacemaker replica.
Hey, mind if I use your phone to call Mindy?
Sure, go ahead. According to David, Scott was not in that vicinity. So Scott never had an opportunity to see that there were 6 live rounds put back in the weapon.
Dude, such a fun gun to shoot.
I know it. So glad my dad sent it to me.
Scott sees the gun on the dresser and picks it up.
And here's where the young men acting like little boys with toy guns parts comes in.
Reach for the sky.
Hey, wait!
And that was all she wrote.
Dwight! Dave, call 911!
And it clearly came down to a very good friend making a very bad decision.
After learning that Dwight's death was truly accidental, the DA's office decides not to file any charges against Scott Eaker.
But no one, to include Mr. Lansing's family, believed it was Scott's intent to do any harm to his friend.
Clearly, Scott should have known better, right? You just don't ever, ever point a gun at somebody, let alone pull the trigger. Ever. I don't care. But Scott did.
Ooh, nice.
Safety is everything in guns. A gun is not a toy. A handgun is designed for one purpose and one purpose alone: to kill. It has no other function. If you treat it badly, you don't respect it, somebody's going to die.
Friend, a 22-year-old named Christopher Cole Thomas had a sudden mental breakdown, pulled their car over, took the keys, and vanished into the pitch-black night. Now, Cole is not from around there. He is a bright, driven young man from Florida, a former pre-med student taking a break to work construction in Minnesota. He was a salutatorian of his high school, a boy who wanted to heal people, inspired by his brother, who has autism. He barely knows these two men. Yet, they expect the police to believe that this young man simply evaporated into thin air. And what do these two upstanding citizens do after reporting him missing? They find the keys under the car, leave their supposed friend in the dark, and drive back to Minnesota. You have to be kidding me. You do not leave a friend behind. And you certainly do not fail to call his parents. The mother of Cole, Kathy, and his father, Chris, have to find out days later from the police. But Chris is a smart man. He tracks down the boss of Cole, a man named Steven, who drops a bomb. This was no holiday road trip. Julian and Jeremy drove from Minnesota to North Carolina to buy methamphetamine. They met up with some local players, Rudolfo De Leon Jr., who goes by Rudy, and Anthony James Jr., known as TJ. Suddenly, the narrative shifts. Julian and Jeremy admit to the drug deal, but stick to the story that Cole just panicked and ran. But liars always forget the silent witnesses. Captain Greg Percy spends countless hours reviewing surveillance tapes. And at exactly 1:10 in the morning on a pharmacy camera, he spots a ghost. It is Cole walking across the frame, and trailing right behind him is Jeremy Carpenter. My. The story changes again. Jeremy now claims he followed Cole to a church, stopped to get on his knees to pray, heard a car door, maybe some gunshots, and then got thirsty and walked to a fast food restaurant for a cup of water at 2:20 in the morning. A cup of water while your friend is allegedly getting shot? I tell you, you cannot fix stupid. And you certainly cannot hide it when the cell phone data comes into play. The family hires a private investigator named David Marshburn, who maps the digital footprints. It turns out Julian and Jeremy had the phone of Cole the entire time. The data shows their phones moving together, leaving Benson, heading toward Wayne County, and going dark around 4 in the morning. The digital trail reveals a conspiracy, a network of lies, and a botched double cross. You see, the working theory is that Julian was planning to rip off the dealers. He would buy the drugs and then have his own crew steal them back. But what Julian did not realize was that his quiet, small-town Florida driver, Cole, understood Spanish. Imagine sitting in that car, listening to a conversation, and realizing you are driving a hearse. Cole likely panicked because he knew he was a dead man walking if he stayed. He bolted. Drugs were thrown out the window. Rudy called in a man named Gordo and others to hunt Cole down. Gordo admits they found him, but claims Cole got in the car willingly. Paranoia does not breed compliance. They force him into that car, and from there, Cole disappeared into the abyss of Wayne County. His parents, Chris and Kathy, even bonded TJ out of jail, an agonizing sacrifice, hoping the tears of a mother could break the silence of a criminal. When Kathy sat across from TJ, she did not scream. She used the most powerful weapon a mother has, her broken heart, and for a fleeting second, the armor cracked. TJ saw the devastation he helped create. He spoke, but the conscience of a coward only extends as far as his own safety. He gave them enough to know Cole was gone, but not enough to bring him home. Julian, Jeremy, Rudy, and TJ all faced charges for concealing a death, but those were dropped to preserve a future homicide case. Jeremy Carpenter died in 2024, taking his secrets to the grave. But the data does not die, and the truth has a funny way of clawing its way out of the dirt. Someone out there knows exactly what happened to Christopher Cole Thomas. If you have the slightest shred of a conscience left, or if you simply want to save your own skin before the walls close in, you need to speak up. The Benson Police Department can be reached at 919-894-2091, or you can contact the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation at 919-779-8188. Do not wait for the knock on your door, because I promise you it is coming. Humans are strange creatures. They kill for the most absurd reasons you could possibly imagine, driven by shadows in their own minds that no one else can see. I tell you, after decades of looking into the eyes of murderers, you realize that the trigger is rarely the weapon itself. It is the slow, silent poison of the mind. Let me take you down to Rowan County, North Carolina, a quiet place where people leave their doors unlocked. July 23rd, 2013. A Tuesday morning shattered by a 911 call. A man named Chuck Reeves finds his fiancée, 62-year-old Shirley Pierce, dead in her own bathtub. My. When I hear a scene is bathed in bleach, I know I am dealing with someone who thinks they can outsmart the police. They always think they're the first person to invent bleach. You have to be kidding me. Shirley was a saint, a hard-working Southern belle who spent her time raising money for charity and doting on her grandson. She did not deserve the sheer rage inflicted upon her. We cleared Chuck. We cleared an old abusive ex-boyfriend named Richard. And then a phone call changes everything. Irvin Johnson, a co-worker of Shirley, calls in and says he thinks his own wife committed the murder. Let's talk about Marlene Johnson. Born into money, entitled, groomed to perfection, but harboring a soul as ugly as sin. In 2003, something inside Marlene broke. She became consumed by an aggressive, terrifying paranoia that her quiet husband was having affairs. When Irvin took a job where Shirley worked, Marlene locked onto Shirley like a heat-seeking missile. Shirley was everything Marlene was not. She was genuinely loved by everyone. Marlene hired private investigators, used drones, stalked this poor woman for years. Imagine the psychological prison Marlene built for herself. Waking up every single day with her blood boiling, dedicating her entire existence to destroying a woman who was doing absolutely nothing wrong. The jealousy rotted her brain. She even attacked Shirley in a restaurant once. Shirley, being the kind soul she was, refused to press charges to save Irvin from embarrassment. That kindness cost Shirley her life. On the night of the murder, Marlene slipped into that house, fueled by years of fabricated delusions, and ambushed Shirley. She tried to wash away the sins with bleach, but she cut her own hands during the frenzy. A classic amateur mistake. She tried to use a friend named Tim Connor as an alibi, but Tim folded instantly when we found a missing knife from his kitchen set. Marlene sat in the interrogation room, wearing sunglasses, acting bored. The absolute disdain I have for that kind of arrogance is hard to put into words. She gasped and collapsed when the guilty verdict was read. Reality finally caught up to her delusions, but murder is not always born from malicious jealousy. Sometimes it is born from a mind stretched so thin that it just snaps. Fast forward to May 2005, St. Petersburg, Florida. A foreclosure cleanout crew finds a mummified body wrapped in plastic, surrounded by dozens of cheap air fresheners. A .38 caliber bullet to the head. It was 40-year-old Debbie Burns. Now, Debbie was developmentally disabled since she was a toddler, functioning with the mind of a child. Her older sister, Barbara, had been forced to drop out of high school at 15 to become her full-time caregiver. For 40 years, Barbara had no life, no friends, no future. Just a grueling cycle of minimum wage jobs and catering to a sister who was demanding, ungrateful, and verbally abusive. Then a miracle happened. Their brother died and left them $350,000. They bought a house. They traveled. But Debbie spent money like water on toys and internet scams. Within 3 years, every single penny was gone. They were facing foreclosure. Barbara realized she had to go back to scrubbing floors while enduring her sister and her relentless demands. One night, after a physical fight over money, Barbara laid in bed, listening to Debbie snore. The psychological weight of 40 years of imprisonment crashed down on her. She took a gun and shot her sister once in the head. She could not process what she had done, so she wrapped the body, filled the house with air fresheners, and lived with her sister and the rotting corpse for 6 weeks before fleeing to Virginia Beach. When we found Barbara cashing Social Security checks, she initially lied, but then she crumbled. She sobbed, wishing she could take it back. Barbara was not a monster like Marlene. Barbara was a tragedy. She took a plea deal for 15 years for manslaughter. 2 different victims, 2 different killers. One driven by a selfish, venomous obsession, the other by utter, total exhaustion of the human spirit. I tell you, the human mind is a terrifying place to wander, and once you cross that line into taking a life, there is no coming back. Humans are strange creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you can imagine. I tell you, when you look into the abyss of human nature, for as long as I have, you realize that true evil is rarely some grand cinematic masterpiece. It is usually born of petty jealousy, a hollow soul, and profound lack of simple human decency. We are talking about the town of Prescott in Arizona, a quiet place where the vast forest hides the sky and sometimes it hides the dead. Pamela Pitts was only 19 years old. She was a beautiful and vibrant young woman with a bright smile, the oldest of 4 children, a girl who loved her family dearly and was just trying to find her place in this chaotic world. She had a gentle and trusting heart, which unfortunately made her the perfect target for a human parasite. During the summer of 1988, she moved in with a girl named Shelley Norgard. Now, Shelley was an awkward individual, a girl burdened with severe abandonment issues, a stern father she wanted to avoid, and a dark void inside her that she expected others to fill. Pam became her emotional crutch. But Pam was young and alive. She talked about attending beauty college. She had many friends. She had a boyfriend named Bobby, and eventually she began to realize that Shelley was a sinking ship pulling her under. Pam wanted to move back home to her family. That desire for independence was her fatal mistake. On the night of September 16th, 1988, Pam vanished without a single trace. 13 long days later, on September 29th, a target shooter at a local recreation spot known as Gordo's Pit found a pile of burned garbage. Poking out of that charred and horrific mess was a human arm. The body had been burned entirely beyond recognition. Dental records eventually confirmed the absolute nightmare for family. It was Pam. My. You look at a crime scene like that, a 19-year-old girl reduced to ash and debris, and you know immediately that you are dealing with someone who harbors a deep and intensely personal hatred. This was not a random encounter with a stranger in the woods. This was an eradication of a human being. When investigators sat down to talk to Shelley, she played the role of a worried and innocent roommate. She spun a web of lies, but she conveniently left out the glaring fact that the car, the purse, and all the personal belongings of Pam were still sitting at their house. You have to be kidding me. You report your roommate missing, but you completely forget to mention she left her entire life behind. Shelley claimed she was just driving around town between 4 in the afternoon and 7 in the morning. Her boyfriend at the time, a young man named Ray Clerks, could not fully corroborate her fabricated timeline. Friends reported that Shelley was enraged that night, actively hunting for Pam, blaming Pam for everything wrong in her miserable existence. Shelley even liked to brag to acquaintances about how to dispose of a human body by burning it or throwing it down an abandoned mine shaft. But physical evidence was completely non-existent. Rumors quickly took over the small town. People whispered endlessly about satanic cults and ritualistic sacrifices in the forest. I tell you, people watch entirely too many movies. It is never a shadowy cult. It is always a very flawed and very selfish individual standing right in front of you. The police chased those empty rumors. They interrogated a girl named Melinda, who had a minor physical altercation with Pam. They even dragged that poor girl before an investigative grand jury. But it was all smoke and mirrors. With no evidence, the investigation stalled, and the case went ice cold. 3 agonizing years passed by. Then, on May 25, 1991, some college students exploring a cave system stumbled upon a vertical mine shaft. At the dark bottom of that drop was a decomposing body wrapped tightly in a waterbed liner, shot directly in the head. It was Ray Clerks. He was only 24 years old. He was a responsible young man, an aspiring commercial airline pilot who was actively planning to move to California and leave Shelley behind forever. Does this pattern sound familiar to you? You try to leave Shelley Norgard, and you end up dead. The psychology is terrifyingly simple. She was a woman who could not bear the perceived rejection of abandonment, so she chose to destroy the things she claimed to love rather than let them walk away. But this time, Shelley made careless mistakes. Investigators found a single fingerprint belonging to Shelley on a flashlight dropped down the mine shaft. They walked up to her car and smelled the undeniable and sickening stench of death in the trunk, eventually finding blood that matched the exact blood type of Ray. The evidence was overwhelming. She was arrested on June 4th, 1991. 2 years later, she decided to accept a plea deal and pled guilty to murder in the second degree. She told the court they were stargazing. He told her he was taking his dogs and leaving her, and she simply snapped, shot him in the head, wrapped him up, and threw him away like discarded garbage. She was sentenced to 20 years in the state prison. But the spirit of Pam Pitts was still waiting patiently for justice. Her grieving family waited over 2 decades. In March of 2011, a dedicated cold case detective finally reopened the dusty file. Shelley was about to be released from prison for the murder of Ray. They went to visit her. They rattled her psychological cage just to see what would fall out, and then they meticulously monitored her prison phone calls. 97 separate phone calls were recorded and analyzed. For years, nothing materialized. Shelley was released in May of 2011. She secured a job, got married, and assumed a new identity as Shelley Harmon. She truly believed she had gotten away with the perfect murder. But in the spring of 2017, That same detective sat down and listened to those 97 calls all over again. He heard a very specific conversation between Shelley and her father. Her father expressed concern about the renewed investigation, and he stated clearly that he was still in the dark because she had never actually told him what happened on that terrible night in 1988. And on that recorded telephone line, there was only a heavy silence. The deafening and cowardly silence of a killer who suddenly realizes the walls are closing in on her. Fabricated life. On June 2nd, 2017, investigators finally made their move and arrested her for the murder of Pam. The case was entirely circumstantial and incredibly difficult to prosecute after 30 long years, with many original witnesses either deceased or struggling with fading memories. To spare the devastated family the absolute agony of a trial that might result in an acquittal, a strategic plea deal was struck. On March 1st, 2021, Shelley stood before a judge and verbally admitted that she tracked Pam down at the party, tackled her to the ground in a blind rage, and brutally beat her until she simply stopped breathing. She selfishly refused to admit that she subsequently burned the body to hide her heinous crime. Because of the complexities of the legal system, she was given credit for the 20 years she had already served for killing Ray, plus the time she waited in the county jail. She walked out of that courtroom a completely free woman at 50 years old. I tell you, the human justice system is a man-made instrument, and sometimes it is painfully and fundamentally imperfect. Two young and promising people, Pam and Ray, had their bright futures violently stolen by a deeply broken woman who could not bear the simple thought of being left alone. Shelley walked out of those doors free, but she will carry the dark and heavy stain of those two innocent souls on her conscience for the rest of her miserable life. And the family of Pam, they walk forward with a beautiful memory of a girl who truly loved life, a relentless fireball of joy whose brilliant light can never be entirely extinguished by the selfish darkness of another. Humans are peculiar creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you can imagine, but the oldest motive in the book is the one about. She lied to her co-workers, and she tried to coerce witnesses like Paige Hester into changing their stories once she was out on bond. It is a chilling thing, isn't it? The lengths a person will go to when they are faced with the exposure of their own failures. The desperation she must have felt, the utter darkness required to decide that your own mother's life is worth less than your financial status. The jury saw through it. They saw the motive, the stage scene in the cold, calculated greed. She was convicted and sentenced to life. It is a tragedy that destroyed a family, not just because a grandmother was gone, but because the trust, the Sunday dinners, and the unity were slaughtered alongside her. People ask me if it gets easier to understand, but it never does. You look into the eyes of a person who's done such a thing, and you realize that for a brief, terrifying moment, they lost their humanity. They became a stranger to themselves, all for the sake of money that was never going to buy them peace. You have to be kidding me. Thinking you can kill the person who loves you most and still have a life worth living. It just does not work that way. Never has, never will. People are strange creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you can imagine. Money, pride, the desperate need to keep a facade from crumbling. You look at a person and think you know them, but you are only seeing the mask they choose to wear. And underneath that mask, sometimes, there is nothing but cold, hard darkness. My. You have to be kidding me. It was February 4th, 1991. A day that would shatter a prominent family in LaGrange, Georgia, forever. Margaret Abernathy was 66 years old, a matriarch who built an empire, a woman who carried the weight of her community on her shoulders. She was generous, a businesswoman who provided for her children, especially her middle daughter, Priscilla Matula. But when the dust settled on this crime scene, we were left looking at a daughter who traded her own blood for a bank account. I tell you, the scene was a mess of contradictions. A home invasion that did not feel like a home invasion. a back door with a broken pane of glass. But the glass was on the outside, not the inside. Someone had tapped that window to make it look like a forced entry, a pathetic attempt to mislead us. It was a stage scene, and in my experience, when you see a stage scene, you are looking at someone who knows the victim intimately. You are looking at family. Priscilla was our first point of contact. She had that narrative ready, a script she had memorized. She went to work. She went to the bank. She went to the post office. She provided an excessive amount of detail about her movements, as if by drowning us in trivialities, we would fail to see the holes in her story. But the truth has a funny way of poking through. Margaret had been shot twice. One bullet, a small caliber, had failed to finish the job, and the evidence in that bathroom was heartbreaking. Bloody tissue, a desperate attempt by a dying woman to stop the bleeding. That meant there was time between the first shot and the final, fatal one. Someone had stood there, watching, perhaps waiting, before deciding that the life of their own mother was worth less than the solvency of a car. Dealership. It is a chilling thought. It takes a certain kind of creature to do that. We dug into the finances. They were deep in the red. Priscilla and her husband, Nick, were drowning in debt, and Margaret had been the one keeping their heads above water. But Margaret had finally seen the truth. She had gone to the bank, furious and distraught, determined to remove Priscilla from the accounts. She was going to cut the lifeline, and Priscilla knew it. She knew if she did not stop her mother, she would lose everything. The prestige, the business, the lifestyle. She was cornered by her own incompetence and greed. We found witnesses. A convenience store clerk saw her car in the area when she claimed to be at work. A neighbor heard the gunshots. And the clincher, the part that really makes your skin crawl? After she was charged, she tried to lean on a witness to change her story. She was not even subtle about it. She was trying to rewrite history, trying to bargain her way out of the inescapable truth. When I look back at this case, I think about the desperation that drives a person to such depths. It is not just about the money. It is about the loss of status, the shame of failure, the ego that refuses to accept reality. She killed her mother to hide her own failures, to keep the lights on in a business she was already running into the ground. A daughter, committing the most unnatural act of all. The jury saw it for what it was, a life sentence. She got what she deserved, but a sentence does not bring back the dead. It does not fix the hollowed-out wreckage of a family that died the moment Margaret Abernathy took her last breath. When Nanny was killed, that family died. The dinners, the trust, the future, it all evaporated. People often ask me if this job changes you. How could it not? You stare into the abyss, and eventually you realize the abyss is just a person standing in a kitchen, holding a gun, afraid of losing a bit of paper and coin. It is a sad, hollow business, I tell you, a very sad business. Human beings are peculiar creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you could ever imagine. They build a life, a reputation, a family legacy, and then, in one moment of sheer, blinding desperation, they burn it all to the ground. My. You think you know people, especially when they're your own flesh and blood, but I tell you, there's a darkness that hides behind the most ordinary smiles. You have to be kidding me if you think you can hide from the truth forever. It was February 4th, 1991, a crisp day in LaGrange, Georgia, a town where everybody knows your business, and frankly, that is usually a good thing, unless you are living a lie. Margaret Abernathy was the matriarch, a woman who held the strings of that community tight in her hand. She was successful, she was generous, and she was, by all accounts, a pillar of decency. But even pillars can be undermined by the people they trust the most. When the call came into 911, it was Priscilla Matula, her daughter, acting the part of the grieving, shocked child. She claimed there had been a burglary. She claimed her mother was hurt. But when I look at a scene, I do not look at what people say. I look at what they do. And what she did was create a performance that did not quite fit the stage. Margaret was found on the floor of the bathroom. There was blood, enough to tell a story that the daughter tried to obscure. We found 2 gunshot wounds to the head. The first one, a small caliber shot that did not penetrate the skull, left Margaret fighting for her life in the bathroom, trying to clean her wounds with toilet tissue. Think about that. She was conscious enough to try and save herself, alone in that house, while the person who likely put her there was out living a double life. Then came the second shot, the one that hit the brainstem and ended it all. It was not a burglary. I tell you, a burglar wants your television, your jewelry, your electronics. They do not care about the order of your drawers. This scene was staged, and it was staged poorly. The broken glass was on the outside of the door, as if someone had punched it from the inside to make it look like a forced entry. It was an insult to the intelligence of any investigator worth their salt. Priscilla was a woman who lived beyond her means, drowning in a web of financial deceit. A kite scheme where she robbed Peter to pay Paul until the whole structure began to collapse. Margaret, the wise businesswoman, saw the rot 2 days before she was murdered. She went to the bank to strip her daughter of all access to the family accounts. That was the death knell for Priscilla. She knew if that change went through on Monday morning, she would be exposed, she would be destitute, and the life she had carefully curated would vanish. So she chose a permanent solution. She went to that house. She confronted her mother, and she did the unthinkable. We tracked her movements. We found witnesses who placed her vehicle at the scene exactly when those shots were fired, shots that a neighbor heard but foolishly ignored. We listened as she tried to manipulate a witness, coaxing her to change her story, trying to rewrite history to fit her narrative. She was pushy, she was desperate, and she was guilty. It is a pathetic thing, really, to watch someone destroy their own mother for money that was not theirs to begin with. You have to be kidding me. A daughter murdering the woman who gave her everything, all because she could not face the consequences of her own financial failures. It is a profound, cold-blooded betrayal. When the jury returned their verdict in August of 1992, they saw exactly what we saw. A woman who looked at the life of the person who loved her most and decided it was worth less than her own comfort. She got life with parole, but in my book, the sentence is never truly over when you have to live with the knowledge that you are a monster. The family died that day. They lost their grandmother. They lost their normalcy, and they lost their faith in the very concept of family. It makes you realize that greed is not just a sin, it is a cancer. It eats away at the soul until there is nothing left but the urge to kill. You can try to hide behind a facade of business deals and suburban respectability, but the truth has a way of coming out, usually stained in blood and shattered by the very lies you told to protect yourself. My, what a terrible, senseless way to end a legacy. Human beings are strange creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you could possibly imagine. Money, power, vanity. They will tear apart the very fabric of their own existence for a quick fix to a problem they created themselves. My, you see this enough times, and you start to realize that the most dangerous place on earth is not a dark alleyway in a big city. No, it is a family dinner table. It is in the silence of a house where people are supposed to love each other. I tell you, I have seen it all, but some cases, they just reach into your chest and grab hold of your heart. This story begins on the 4th of February, 1991, in LaGrange, Georgia, a place where everybody knew everybody, and the name Abernathy meant something. Margaret Abernathy was a woman who built an empire, a matriarch who kept the gears of that small town turning. She was successful, she was generous, and she loved her children with a fierce, unwavering devotion. She was the anchor. But even the strongest anchors can be pulled down when the people they hold on to are anchored to. Nothing but their own greed. When the call came in at 12:30 in the afternoon, it was from her daughter, Priscilla Matula. She said her mother was hurt, She said it was a burglary. You go into a crime scene like that, and you expect to find a stranger, some lowlife looking for a quick score. You see the broken glass, you see the open drawers, and you start to build a picture. But the scene was wrong. The glass was broken from the inside. The drawers were not ransacked. They were staged. A pathetic attempt to make it look like a smash and grab. You have to be kidding me. You really think a seasoned investigator is going to miss that? That is when you know the predator was not a stranger. The predator was someone who had a key. Margaret Abernathy had been shot twice in the head. Think about that for a second. 2 shots. The first one, in the bedroom while she slept, was not enough to finish the job. She crawled to the bathroom, clutching at her life, tried to stop the bleeding with toilet tissue. She was terrified, confused, and alone in her own home. And then the killer came back. Or perhaps the killer had been waiting. They finished what they started with a shot to the brainstem. It is a level of cold-bloodedness that I struggle to put into words. It is the ultimate betrayal. Priscilla was a golden child, the one who took over the family dealership, the one who was supposed to carry the torch. But she was bleeding money. She was running a kite scheme, moving checks from bank to bank, robbing Peter to pay Paul. All while her mother sat on a mountain of assets. Margaret was not blind. She had discovered the discrepancy, and on the Saturday before the murder, she had gone to the bank to cut Priscilla off. She was going to strip her of her authority. She was going to stop the bleeding. You have to imagine the desperation boiling in Priscilla. She had built a life on a foundation of sand, and her mother was about to wash it all away. She could not let that happen. She had to secure her future by ending her mother's. She went to the house. She acted out her twisted little play of a burglary. And then she stood there, watching the woman who gave her everything wither away. And the most chilling part? She went back to work. She pretended to be the concerned daughter, checking her watch, calling around, playing the role until she could finally report the crime she had committed herself. She was so arrogant that she even tried to coach witnesses after she was out on bond. She tried to bully a clerk into changing her story, to make the timing of her visit fit a narrative that did not put her at the scene. But the truth has a funny way of making itself heard. It does not care about your alibis or your elaborate lies. It just waits. When the jury finally delivered that guilty verdict in August of 1992, it was not just a victory for justice. It was a recognition of a tragedy so deep that it destroyed a family from the inside out. A daughter killing her mother for money. It is a dark, hollow place, and I hope to God none of you ever have to visit it. Human beings are strange creatures. They kill each other for the most ridiculous reasons you can imagine, often blinded by a greed so profound it erases every shred of decency they ever possessed. You have to be kidding me. I tell you, sitting there looking at a crime scene that is supposed to be a home invasion, only to realize the person who supposedly discovered the body is the one who orchestrated the entire tragedy. My. Margaret Abernathy was the matriarch, a pillar of this small Georgia town, someone who built an empire and loved her family with everything she had. She was 66 years old, successful, generous, and respected. But in February of 1991, that life was cut short by someone who shared her blood, someone who lived for her money and died for her secrets. You see, the house was staged. A broken glass pane at the back door, a few missing trinkets, drawers open with careful, unnatural precision. It was a performance, a cheap theater act put on by a desperate daughter. Priscilla Matula was the daughter who stood to lose it all. When Margaret discovered the financial discrepancies, the check kiting, the fake sales, the whole house of cards Priscilla had built, she went to the bank on that Saturday to cut her daughter off. She was distraught, she was angry, and she was done. Priscilla knew that come Monday, when her mother finalized those changes, her world would collapse. She was in the red. Her financial safety net was being snatched away, and she decided the only way to save herself was to eliminate the source of her wealth. I tell you, It is chilling to think about. Priscilla entered that house, shot her own mother while she was asleep in her bed, and likely thought the job was finished. But Margaret was stronger than she looked. She managed to crawl into the bathroom, trying to stop the bleeding, trying to survive. When Priscilla returned later, finding her mother still breathing, she did not call for help. She did not show mercy. She walked into that bathroom and fired the second shot, the one that perforated the brain stem and ended it all. The arrogance of these people, thinking they can outsmart the facts. She told us she was at work. She gave us excessive, agonizing detail about school buses and traffic, trying to build an alibi out of thin air. She lied about where she was. She lied about the timeline. And she even tried to manipulate a witness after she was out on bond, calling to adjust the story. You have to be kidding me. She wanted to rewrite reality. But the truth is a stubborn thing. It does not care about your stories or your excuses. When you look into the eyes of a person who has committed such an act, you see a void. The desperation was not just about the money. It was about the fear of falling from grace. But in killing her mother, she destroyed the very family she claimed to love. She turned a home of warmth and business into a crime scene, and in doing so, she became the architect of her own ruin. They found her guilty, and she received a life sentence. But that does not bring back the woman who gave her everything. You look at these cases, and you realize that the most dangerous place on earth is often the dinner table, where the people you trust the most are the ones who might be counting the minutes until you are gone. It is a dark, cold reality, and it stays with you long after the gavel falls. Human beings are strange creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you could ever imagine. You think you know the people you sit across from at the dinner table, but then you find them in the cold silence of a crime scene, and the truth reveals a darkness that makes your skin crawl. I tell you, I've seen it all. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepares you for the moment you realize that the person who orchestrated the carnage is the one wearing the mask of the grieving relative. You have to be kidding me. It was February 4th, 1991. A day like any other in the picturesque town of LaGrange, Georgia, until it wasn't. Margaret Abernathy, a woman who held that town in the palm of her hand, was found on her bathroom floor, drowning in her own blood. Everyone assumed it was a home invasion gone south. That is what they wanted us to believe. But when I look at a crime scene, I do not look at the story the perpetrator is trying to tell me. I look at the lies they left behind in their haste. The rear window was broken, yes, but the glass was on the outside. You do not break into a house by pushing glass outward. It was a pathetic, amateur attempt to stage a robbery. It tells me that the killer was not a professional. It tells me the killer was someone who knew the house, someone who panicked, and someone who felt they were running out of time. Margaret Abernathy was a pillar of the community, a matriarch who built an empire out of car dealerships and kindness. She was the kind of person who gave more than she took. But greed has a way of rotting the strongest foundations. Her daughter, Priscilla Matula, was the heir apparent, the one who worked by her side, the one who was supposed to carry the torch. But when you look at the books, you do not see a successful businesswoman. You see a house of cards. Priscilla was deep in a check-kiting scheme, robbing Peter to pay Paul, drowning in debt. And desperate, Margaret had finally seen the truth. She was going to cut Priscilla off, remove her from the accounts, and leave her with nothing. That realization, that her financial lifeline was about to be severed, is when the creature inside, Priscilla, took control. You see, a mother's love is supposed to be the most powerful force on this earth, yet here it was discarded like trash for the sake of money. The medical evidence was chilling. 2 gunshots. The first, in the bedroom, was meant to finish it, but Margaret survived long enough to crawl to the bathroom. The killer, in a state of absolute cold-blooded necessity, had to finish the job. There was time between those shots. There was time for mercy, time for regret, but Priscilla chose a path of total destruction. She shot her own mother twice in the head to secure a financial future that was already burning to the ground. When we interviewed Priscilla, she was a fountain of excessive, rehearsed detail. She told us where she was, what she ate, the traffic, the school buses, a script designed to distract. She was so busy building an alibi that she forgot to act like a daughter who had just lost her world. She even tried to coerce a witness later, calling her to adjust the timeline, to shift the reality of that day. She was cagey, desperate, and utterly cold. When the jury looked at the facts, they saw exactly what we saw. A woman who traded her soul and her mother's life for a bank account balance. She was found guilty and sentenced to life. I reflect on this often. The human heart is a dark room, and some people are all too eager to lock themselves inside it. To kill for money is one thing, but to kill your own mother? That is a level of malice that defies comprehension. The Abernathy family did not just lose Margaret that day. They lost their center, their history, and their trust. A family died the moment that trigger was pulled. It is a haunting reminder that the people you think you know the best are often the ones you should be watching the closest. It is a tragedy that echoes in the quiet streets of Lagrange even now, a testament to the fact that when the ties at bond break, they do so with a sound that never truly stops ringing in your ears. Human beings are strange creatures. They kill for the most pathetic, unimaginative reasons you can possibly conceive. And when that murder happens within the sanctity of a family, it leaves a scar that never truly fades. My, you have to be kidding me. We are looking at February 4th, 1991, in the quiet, picturesque town of Lagrange, Georgia, a place where everybody knows your business before you have even finished your morning coffee. Margaret Abernathy was a woman of substance, a matriarch who built an empire and loved her family with a fierce, unwavering devotion. And then there was her daughter, Priscilla Matula, the apple that did not just fall far from the tree. It rolled into a gutter of greed and desperation. I tell you, there is a particular kind of darkness that descends when a child turns on a hand that fed them. When the call came into 911, Priscilla claimed she found her mother in the bathroom, a victim of a burglary gone wrong. But the scene told a very different story. We arrived to find a house that was staged, a pathetic attempt to mimic a break-in by someone who clearly did not understand how physics works. The glass on that back door was broken from the inside, not the outside. It was a detail so amateurish, it was almost an insult to the badge. You see, Margaret had been shot twice. The first shot in the bedroom, while she was likely sleeping, was not enough to finish the job. She had crawled to the bathroom, clutching bloody tissues, trying to stop the life from leaking out of her. She was a fighter, but then the shooter returned. A second shot, straight to the brainstem. That is not an accident. That is an execution. It is the cold, calculated choice of a person who has decided that their financial survival is worth more than the beating heart of their own mother. The motive? It is always the same old song. Greed. Priscilla and her husband, Nick, were drowning in debt, running a check-kiting scheme to keep their dealership afloat. They were robbing Peter to pay Paul, and they were running out of time. Margaret had finally seen the truth. On that Saturday, 2 days before the murder, she went to the bank. She was livid. She wanted Priscilla off the accounts. She was cutting off the lifeline. And in that moment, Priscilla decided that the only way to keep the cash flowing was to remove the woman who had made her life possible in the first place. I sit here and I reflect on the nature of these people. Priscilla walked through her day, lying to everyone, trying to manufacture an alibi that was thinner than paper. She went to the store. She checked on her mother. She played the grieving daughter perfection, while her hands were still stained with the metaphorical blood of the person she claimed to love most. And when the walls began to close in, what does she do? She tries to coerce a witness. She calls Paige Hester, trying to twist memory. trying to reshape reality because that is what sociopaths do. They think they are the smartest person in the room until they are sitting in a courtroom hearing a jury say the word guilty. The trial lasted until August of 1992, a life sentence. That is the price of admission for such a hollow, dark heart. You know, you look at a woman like Margaret Abernathy, generous, hard-working, the backbone of her town, and you see what a life of love creates. Then you look at the void left behind by her daughter's actions, and you realize that some ties, the very ones that are supposed to bind us together, can be severed by the smallest, most wretched desires. It is a tragedy of the highest order. A family did not just lose a mother. They lost their history, their joy, and their sense of safety. And all for what? A few zeros in a bank account that never mattered in the first place. It makes you wonder what kind of monster lurks beneath the surface of the people you see every day. My, the world is a colder place than you think. Human beings are strange creatures. They commit the most heinous acts for the most trivial reasons imaginable. And I have seen enough of the dark side of humanity to know that blood does not always equate to loyalty. My, you have to be kidding me if you think a family bond is enough to keep greed at bay. In the case of Margaret Abernathy, a woman who built an empire in LaGrange, Georgia, through sheer grit and generosity. The ties that should have bound her to her own flesh and blood became the very noose that tightened around her life. I tell you, it is a cold day in hell when a child decides that a parent is worth more to them dead than alive. But that is exactly what we were looking at on the 4th of February. 1991. Margaret Abernathy was a pillar of her community, a woman who understood the value of a dollar and the worth of her children. She was the one who fronted the capital for her daughter, Priscilla Matula, to run a car dealership, trusting that her own daughter would protect the family legacy. But greed has a funny way of poisoning the well. Priscilla and her husband, Nick, were drowning in debt, playing a dangerous game of check kiting, robbing Peter to pay Paul. And when Margaret finally caught on, she did exactly what any sensible businesswoman would do. She went to the bank on that Saturday 2 days prior to her death, adamant that she was removing Priscilla from all business accounts. She was going to cut her off. And in that moment, Priscilla realized that if she did not act, she would lose everything. It is a chilling thing, isn't it? To stand in the shadow of the person who gave you life and decide their expiration date. When we first arrived at that crime scene, we were looking at what appeared to be a home invasion. A back window broken, a few drawers pulled open. But any investigator with 2 eyes and a shred of experience can spot a stage scene from a mile away. The glass was on the outside, not the inside. The drawers were arranged with an almost unnatural neatness, not the chaotic wreckage of a frantic thief. It was a production, a script written by someone who had lived in that house. The medical reality was even more disturbing. Margaret had been shot twice. The first shot, fired while she was likely resting in her bed, did not kill her. We found evidence of blood on toilet tissue in the bathroom, proof that this poor woman had crawled there in a desperate, agonizing attempt to stop her own bleeding. There was a window of time between those shots. The shooter had to come back, find her, and finish the job. This was not a crime of passion. It was a cold, calculated execution performed by a daughter who felt her lifestyle was slipping through her fingers. Priscilla tried to sell us a story about a busy morning of errands, traffic, and missing her mother, but her narrative was far too detailed, too rehearsed. People who are telling the truth do not need a script. When we finally broke through the walls she had built, we found a woman who had lied about her location, lied about her whereabouts, and then, in a desperate move, tried to manipulate a witness to cover her tracks. She called Paige Hester, hoping to change the timeline, to nudge history to fit her alibi. It was a pathetic attempt to save her own skin. I sat there and watched the family unravel. When we finally put the pieces together, the financial ruin, the impending removal from the bank accounts, the motive that burned brighter than any sense of morality, it became clear. Priscilla had chosen money over her mother. She was found guilty and received a life sentence, an outcome that was as necessary as it was tragic. You look at a case like this, and you have to ask yourself what makes a person reach that point of total moral collapse. It is a dark, hollow place, and frankly, I do not care to visit again. When Nanny was killed, that family died with her. Everything that mattered, the dinners, the history, the love, was extinguished by a daughter who valued a car a lot more than the heartbeat of the woman who raised her. It is a sad, simple truth, but a truth nonetheless. People are strange creatures. They claim to value blood ties above all else. Yet they will commit the most heinous of acts for nothing more than a few numbers in a bank account. I tell you, I have seen some things in my time. But the murder of Margaret Abernathy remains a cold reminder that the people who should love you most are often the ones you should fear the most. You have to be kidding me. Killing your own mother over a failing car dealership and some cookbooks. The sheer audacity of human greed never ceases to baffle me. It was February 4th, 1991, in the quiet town of LaGrange, Georgia, a place where everybody knew everybody, or so they thought. Margaret Abernathy was a pillar of that community, a matriarch who built an empire through hard work and a steady hand. She was the kind of woman who took care of her children, giving them the world, including the money to run their own business. Her middle daughter, Priscilla Matula, was the golden child, the one who worked right alongside her mother. They were inseparable until the day that bond, supposedly forged in iron, shattered into pieces of lead. When we arrived at that crime scene, it was a mess of contradictions. Priscilla told us she had found her mother, 66 years of age, dying on the bathroom floor. She tried to sell us a story of a home invasion, a burglary gone wrong. But here's the thing about crime scenes. They speak. And they rarely lie, even when the people inside them do. The front door was locked, and the supposed forced entry was a joke. Someone had tapped a small hole in a rear window pane, leaving the glass on the outside, not the inside. You cannot reach a hand through a hole that small to unlock a door. It was a stage play, a pathetic attempt to distract us from the truth. The truth was written in the blood on a pillow in the bedroom and the tissues in the bathroom. Margaret had been shot while in bed, likely asleep. She had managed to drag herself to the bathroom to try to clean her wounds. That means there was time between the first shot and the second, fatal bullet that severed her brain stem. Someone had stood over her, watched her struggle, and finished the job. That is not a burglary. That is an execution. We dug into the finances, and that is where the mask slipped. Priscilla was drowning in debt. She had been playing a dangerous game, kiting checks, moving money from one account to another to hide the fact that her car lot was hemorrhaging cash. Margaret had discovered the theft, and on that Saturday, she had gone to the bank, ready to cut Priscilla off, ready to strip her of all power. By Monday, Margaret would have been free of that burden, and Priscilla would have been ruined. Priscilla could not let that happen. She chose to kill the woman who gave her life rather than face the consequences of her own failure. Priscilla tried to lie about her whereabouts, but the truth is a stubborn thing. A witness saw her Jeep at the house during the time of the shooting, and a neighbor heard the shots. Even after she was out on bond, she had the gall to call a witness, trying to twist her memory, trying to reshape reality to fit her narrative. She was cold, calculated, and entirely devoid of the remorse one would expect from a daughter who had just lost her mother. When we finally brought her in, she did not even acknowledge the questions. She just sat there, a woman who had traded her soul for a dealership that was already bankrupt. I look at the human condition, and I see the wreckage left behind. For the Abernathy family, the tragedy was not just the loss of a mother, it was a realization that their own flesh and blood was a monster in their midst. When Margaret died, the heart of that family stopped beating. Vacations, dinners, the simple warmth of belonging, it all vanished. Priscilla thought she was saving herself from financial ruin, but all she did was destroy everything that actually mattered. In the end, a jury saw through the lies, and she was sentenced to life. It is a hollow victory, really. You send a murderer to prison, but you cannot bring back the trust that was stolen. It is just another day, another crime, another soul lost to the insatiable hunger of greed. It never ends. Human beings are strange creatures. They possess the capacity for profound love, for building empires, for nurturing life. Yet they also harbor potential to commit the most despicable acts imaginable over simple, cold, hard currency. You see a woman like Margaret Abernathy, a matriarch who held the strings of a small town in Georgia, and you think she is untouchable. She was a pillar, a businesswoman, a grandmother who doted on her kin. But in this life, being the foundation of a family can sometimes make you a target. I tell you, it is a bitter pill to swallow when the person pulling the trigger shares your own blood. On the 4th of February, 1991, in the picturesque town of Lagrange, the silence of a mundane Monday was shattered by a call to 911. Priscilla Matula, the daughter, had found her mother, 66-year-old Margaret Abernathy, lying on the bathroom floor, bathed in blood. You have to be kidding me. That was the initial scene, a supposed home invasion, a burglary gone wrong, or so the story went. But I have spent my life walking to the shadows of human nature, and I have learned that the scenes that look the most staged are the ones written by people who think they are smarter than the police. When we walked into that house, we saw the signs. A rear window, a tiny hole in the glass, all broken from the inside. A pathetic attempt to misdirect. The reality was much darker. Margaret had been shot twice in the head. The evidence, bloody tissues in the bathroom, told a haunting story of a woman who had tried to save herself, who had lingered between life and death after the first shot, while her assailant presumably waited or retreated, only to return to finish the job. It was cold. It was calculated. It was, in my professional opinion, the work of someone who knew the house, knew the victim, and knew exactly what they stood to lose. The greed was the engine, you see. Priscilla and her husband, Nick, were neck-deep in debt. Their car dealership was a house of cards, built on a mountain of kite checks. A scheme where you rob Peter to pay Paul, just to keep the lights on for another day. Margaret was a bank, the safety net, the one who fronted the money. But even a mother has a breaking point. Only 2 days before she died, Margaret had marched into the bank, furious, demanding that Priscilla be removed from all business accounts. She had seen the discrepancies. She was cutting the cord. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is when the creature emerged in Priscilla. I look at this case, and I see a woman who looked into the abyss of financial ruin and decided that the life of her mother was a small price to pay to maintain her lifestyle. She lied about her whereabouts. She lied about her activities. And she tried to groom a witness to cover her tracks. She thought she could manipulate the truth as easily as she manipulated those bank ledgers. She was wrong. We did not have a murder weapon, and we did not have an eyewitness to pull the trigger, but we had the motive and we had the lies. And those are two things that weigh very heavily in a court of law. It is a tragedy of the highest order. The family died that day, too. Not just Margaret, but the unity, the dinners, the history. All of it turned to ash because of one woman's desperate, selfish ambition. She was sentenced to life in prison, and I suppose some might call that justice. But when you look at the hollowed-out remains of a family destroyed by their own, you realize that in these cases, there are no winners. Only survivors left to wonder how they never saw the monster standing right in front of them. Human beings are strange creatures. They commit the most heinous acts for the most trivial reasons imaginable, and sometimes the people who should love you the most are the very ones waiting in the shadows with a cold heart and a loaded weapon. You see a case like this, and you have to ask yourself, What is it that turns a daughter into a predator? I tell you, it is a sickness of the soul, a rot that starts with greed and ends in a pool of blood on a bathroom floor. On the 4th of February, 1991, in the quiet town of LaGrange, Georgia, we found Margaret Abernathy. She was a matriarch, a pillar of the community, and a woman who had given everything to her children. She was lying there, clinging to life, while her daughter, Priscilla Matula, played the part of the grieving child. But the truth has a funny way of rising to the surface, no matter how much you try to bury it. When I looked at that crime scene, I knew right away. The broken glass was on the outside of the door, not the inside. You have to be kidding me. You want to stage a burglary. At least do your homework. They try to make it look like a home invasion, but it was nothing more than a calculated execution. Margaret had been shot twice. The first shot did not kill her. It only shattered her world. The evidence showed she had been in the bathroom. Try to clean herself up. Try and stop the bleeding. That means there was time between the first shot and the second. She was suffering, alone, while the person who did this was likely nearby, waiting to finish the job. It makes my skin crawl. Priscilla was in deep financial trouble, up to her neck in a check-kiting scheme. She was robbing Peter to pay Paul, and the bank accounts were bleeding dry. When her mother found out, when the matriarch stood her ground and decided to cut her daughter off, the clock started ticking. Priscilla knew that come Monday, she would be destitute, and for some people, losing their lifestyle is a fate worse than murder. I sat there and watched the family. It was heartbreaking. They were a tight-knit unit, or at least they appeared to be, until the mask slipped. You look at the motive, and it is always the same old song, money. It is the root of so much misery. Priscilla thought she could play us for fools. She lied about her whereabouts. She lied about her timeline. And she even tried to strong-arm a witness into changing her story. It is pathetic, really. To murder the woman who gave you life just so you can keep a car dealership running? That is a special kind of darkness. The jury saw through the smoke and mirrors. When the verdict came down on the 28th of August, 1992, it was a life sentence. But you know, that does not bring Margaret back. It does not fix the hollow space left in that family. I have walked many crime scenes in my time, but there is a special, cold place in hell for a child who kills a parent. You go home after a case like this, you sit in the dark, and you think about the choices people make. It is a reminder that the people sitting at your dinner table might be the very ones hiding a monster inside. And that, my friends, is a cold, hard reality of the business I spent my life in. Human beings are strange creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you can imagine. Greed. It is a poison that turns blood into ice and makes a person forget who they are, who they came from, and the very hands that fed them. My. You look at a woman like Margaret Abernathy, a matriarch, a cornerstone of her community, and you think she is safe in the quiet town of LaGrange, Georgia. But the most dangerous places are often the ones where we feel most secure, behind the doors of our own homes, sitting across from the people we trust the most. I tell you, this case was a slow descent into a darkness that sits in the heart of a daughter who thought she could cheat her way to a fortune. February 4th, 1991. That is when the facade began to crack. Priscilla Matula calls 911, claiming a burglary, claiming her mother is hurt. When we arrive, the house is cold, quiet, and staged. It is a pathetic attempt at theater. We see broken glass, but the physics are all wrong. The glass is on the outside, scattered like a clumsy lie. You have to be kidding me. A real burglar kicks a door in. They do not tap a pane of glass from the inside to create a narrative. It was a performance, a desperate play by an amateur actress who had run out of time. Margaret Abernathy was not just a victim. She was a woman who had given everything to her children. She was the fuel for their empire, the heart of their business, and the bank that never asked for interest. But money, that wretched, alluring thing, has a way of turning love into a liability. Priscilla, the daughter who walked in her shadow, had been playing a dangerous game, a kite scheme, moving money between accounts, creating phantom wealth, robbing Peter to pay Paul while the walls of her life were closing in. Margaret, sharp as a tack, finally saw the truth. 2 days before she was taken, she went to the bank. She was done. She was cutting Priscilla off. Think about that moment. The realization that the lifeline is being severed. For most of us, that would mean a hard conversation, a fall from grace, maybe bankruptcy. For Priscilla, it meant a death sentence for her mother. I have walked many crime scenes. But there is something particularly chilling about a crime committed in the bedroom, where the victim was resting. Margaret was shot once, left to suffer, and then, finding her alive in the bathroom, the shooter finished the job. That is not an act of passion. That is a cold, calculated execution. It shows a lack of empathy, so profound it makes your skin crawl. The investigation was like peeling an onion, layer by layer, with tears involved at every turn. We looked at everyone. We looked at the help. We looked at the brother. We looked at the husband. But the compass kept pointing back to the one person who knew the schedule, who knew the house, and who had everything to lose. She lied about her movements. She said she was at work. She said she was running errands. She said she was anywhere but at her mother's home. But the truth has a funny way of making noise. A witness across the street, a clerk at a convenience store, they all place her right there when the shots rang out. And then the phone call, after she was out on bond. She couldn't help herself. She reached out to the witness, trying to twist the truth, trying to reshape reality to fit her survival. It was cowardly. It was a final nail in her own coffin. When you are guilty, you never stop running, and you never stop trying to bury the past. In August 1992, the jury returned the only verdict that made sense. Life. She traded her mother's life for money she never got to spend, and she destroyed a family in the process. It is a tragedy of Shakespearean proportions, played out in a small town where everyone thought they knew their neighbors. You have to go to a really dark place to understand this. You have to look at someone and see not a mother, not a person, but an obstacle to be removed. It is a bitter reminder that the people who hurt us most are not the strangers in the night, but the ones we hold closest. It makes you wonder about the nature of the bond between a parent and a child, and how easily that bond can be shattered by a little bit of green paper and a lot of arrogance. Human beings are strange creatures. They commit the most unthinkable acts for reasons that are as petty as they are pathetic. You look at a case like this, and you ask yourself, how does a daughter look at the woman who gave her life, the woman who bankrolled her existence, and decide that the only solution to a mounting pile of debt is a bullet to the back of the head? My. You have to be kidding me. On the 4th of February, 1991, in the quiet town of LaGrange, Georgia, a matriarch named Margaret Abernathy was found on her bathroom floor, drowning in her own blood. At first glance, it looked like a burglary gone wrong. A random act of violence in a place where people usually leave their doors unlocked. That is exactly what they wanted us to believe. But murder has a smell, and this scene smelled like a setup from the moment I stepped over that threshold. You look at the house, and you see the signs of a struggle that never happened. A broken window pane, but the glass is on the outside. That is not a break-in. That is a bad performance. An amateur attempt to mislead an investigation. People are always in such a hurry to cover their tracks that they forget to pay attention to the physics of the crime. I tell you, it takes a cold, calculated mind to stage a scene while the victim is fighting for her last breath in the next room. Margaret had been shot twice. The first shot, a small caliber slug that didn't finish the job, leaving her enough time to crawl to the bathroom in a desperate, futile attempt to clean her own wounds. Think about that. She was trying to save herself while her own flesh and blood was likely waiting for the moment to finish what she had started. The second shot, straight into the brain stem. That is not a crime of passion. That is an execution. We sifted through the suspects, and the list was as long as the Sunday morning service. But the truth always has a way of rising to the top, no matter how much you try to bury it in deception. We looked at the help. We looked at the son. But all roads eventually pointed back to the daughter, Priscilla Matula. You see, Priscilla was a woman drowning in red ink. She had been playing a dangerous game of financial smoke and mirrors, kiting checks, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and pretending that her business was a success when it was actually a house of cards ready to collapse. Her mother, Margaret, the woman who had fronted her the money and stood by her through every storm, finally caught on. She went to the bank. She was furious, and she was done with the excuses. She was going to cut Priscilla off, and in Priscilla's twisted mind, that meant the end of her world. It is a tragedy of the highest order. A daughter who valued a bank account more than the woman who raised her. We had the witnesses who placed her car at the scene when she claimed she was nowhere near the house. We had the financial records that painted a picture of absolute desperation. And then we had the phone call. Even after she was out on bond, she couldn't help herself. She tried to coach a witness, tried to rewrite history as if she were scripting a play. She was pushy, she was cagey, and she was absolutely guilty. She sat there in those interviews, refusing to even acknowledge the gravity of what she had done, as if silence could protect her from the cold, hard facts of the law. I have spent my life staring into the eyes of people who have done the unthinkable, and it never gets easier to reconcile. You have to go to a dark, desolate place in your own mind to understand the level of malice required to eliminate your own. Mother to settle a ledger. When the jury came back with a guilty verdict, it wasn't just the end of a trial. It was a final chapter in the destruction of a family. The vacations, the Sunday dinners, the legacy, all of it vanished because of greed. Priscilla got what she deserved, a life sentence, but that doesn't bring Margaret back. It doesn't heal the void left behind. It is just another reminder that beneath the surface of the quietest, most dignified towns, human nature can be as ugly as the day is long. I tell you, it is a hell of a thing to witness. Human beings are strange creatures. They commit the most heinous acts for the most trivial reasons imaginable, and sometimes those acts are birthed in the very places where they should be safest, in the arms of the family. My, you have to be kidding me. You look at a woman like Margaret Abernathy, a pillar of her community, a matriarch who built a life out of hard work and generosity, and you think to yourself that she is untouchable. But I tell you, evil does not care about your standing in a small Georgia town. It does not care about your bank accounts or your kindness. It only cares about the darkness residing in the hearts of those closest to you. On the 4th of February, 1991, in LaGrange, Georgia, the silence of a peaceful life was shattered. A call came in from Priscilla Matula, claiming she found her mother in the bathroom, surrounded by blood. You go to a scene like that, you see the struggle, you see the desperation, and your gut tells you something is wrong. We arrived, expecting a home invasion, a burglary gone wrong, but the house told a different story. The stage break-in at the back door was an amateur move, a pathetic attempt to distract from the truth. The glass was broken from the inside, a small, careful hole that could not have served any purpose for an intruder. It was a play, a performance meant for us, but the script was fundamentally flawed. Margaret had been shot twice, 2 rounds from a small caliber weapon to the back of the head. The evidence showed she had been attacked in her bed, then dragged herself to the bathroom to try and stop the bleeding, only to be finished off by the person she trusted most. I tell you, the coldness of it makes your skin crawl. This was not a random act of violence. This was a calculated execution, rooted in pure, unadulterated greed. We looked at the suspects, the people with keys, the people with motive. There was Diaka Andromulus, the gentle soul who lived in the home, but he was a dead end. There was Alec Abernathy, the son with the debts and the inheritance dreams, but he had an alibi that held water. And then there was Priscilla, always Priscilla. We dug into the finances, And that is where the mask slipped. The woman was drowning in a kite scheme, moving money around to hide the fact that she was broke. Her mother had found out. Her mother was going to cut her off, to remove her authority over the accounts, to stop the hemorrhaging of the family wealth. For Priscilla, that was the end of her world as she knew it. She was desperate, and she decided that her mother was an obstacle that needed to be removed. Priscilla lied about her whereabouts that morning. She claimed to be at work. But witnesses placed her vehicle at her mother's home during the exact window when those shots were fired. She tried to manipulate a witness after the fact, trying to rewrite history because she realized she was caught. It is pathetic, really, how these individuals think they can outsmart the truth. She was a woman who had everything, yet she was willing to trade her mother's life for a few more days of keeping up appearances. When the jury finally delivered the guilty verdict in August of 1992, it was not just a legal conclusion. It was a realization that the ties that bind can be severed by the sharpest edge of human selfishness. The Abernathy family did not just lose a matriarch that day. They lost their foundation, their history, and their sense of reality. A daughter killing her mother is an act that defies the natural order, a descent into a darkness that is difficult to even put into words. It is a reminder that we never truly know the people sitting across the dinner table from us. And that is a sobering thought to take to your grave. Human beings are strange creatures. They kill for the most ridiculous reasons you could possibly imagine. Money, pride, a fear of losing the comfortable life they have built on a foundation of lies. I tell you, it never ceases to amaze me how quickly the thin veneer of civilization peels away when someone is backed into a corner of their own making. My, you have to be kidding me. It was February 4th, 1991, in the small, picturesque town of LaGrange, Georgia, a place where everybody knows your name and, more importantly, everybody knows your business. Margaret Abernathy was a pillar of that community, a businesswoman, a matriarch, a woman who held the strings of her family tight. But on that Monday afternoon, those very strings were about to snap in the most brutal fashion. We arrived at her home expecting a burglary, a home invasion gone wrong. That is what the 911 call from her daughter, Priscilla Matula, told us. We found Margaret on the bathroom floor, clinging to life.